Right. Hemendra, good morning.
Good morning, Anil. Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure, pleasure. Very excited to be on the call.
Hi, Hemendra.
Hello, hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good.
Good morning.
How are you, Hemendra? Hi.
Hello, sir. Good morning. Very good morning.
Morning, Mr. Hemendra. Ramanan here.
Hello, sir. Good to see you.
Good
morning.
seeing you.
Good morning, Hemendra.
We'll start now.
Okay, so shall we start now?
200 participants.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we can. Madhushri, we can start. Rest all can go on mute as and when their turn comes.
Good morning, everyone. A very warm wishes of Kisan Divas from the entire team of Samunnati. We are excited to host you today. On the occasion of National Farmers Day, we are organizing the virtual launch of a digital transformation initiative. It is a real pleasure to present here virtually and welcome you all. You would get to know more about the initiative soon. Thank you for joining in. On that note, I would like to invite Mr. Anil Kumar SG, founder and CEO of Samunnati, to open the event with a welcome note. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Very good morning to all of you, and a warm welcome to all the dignitaries who have taken out time to join this important event in the morning. Mr. Ramanan, Srinivasan sir, Hemendra, Bhaskarji, right, Arindam, and Praveshji, thank you very much for taking out time. I know all of us who believe in agriculture and believe to do something meaningful, this is an auspicious day, National Farmers Day, Kisan Divas. And on this day, we thought it is appropriate for us to launch this event, the details of which will unfold in the next couple of hours. But to start off, Samunnati, as the word goes, is for collective prosperity, collective elevation, and collective growth. And that word collective is an important dimension for us. And we are working for two dimensions, two objectives. One, how do we make the agri value chains that we engage in operate at a higher equilibrium, increase the throughput, and thereby how can we make markets work for smallholder farmers? Because the core, the purpose for which Samunnati as an entity exists is to make markets work for smallholder farmers. The moment we think of making markets work for smallholder farmers, multiple things come to the mind. One, are market linkages keen? Are the market players keen? Is financing adequate and access being there? So on and so forth. So many of us who are part of the inclusive finance dimension understood way back that while finance is important, it is not sufficient, and market linkages play a significant role in bringing about the value for the smallholder farmers. It is with that dimension that we came out with a framework that we call as AMLA approach to engage with our farmer producer organizations, who are the principal client segment that we work with. And this AMLA framework stands for aggregation, market linkage, and advisory services. Now, aggregation is a set of people who are doing the same economic activity coming together. The cotton growing farmers, the sugarcane growing farmers, or dairy farmers, set of farmers coming together for their collective benefit and their collective welfare. And why is this aggregation important? It is important only when market linkages happen. And how do we make market linkages happen? When these people have a better bargaining power to be able to do two things on the market linkages dimension. Can they procure what they need in the right quantities at the right time from the right sources? And two, can they sell what they want to sell at the right time with the right metrics in terms of whether first level of processing or grading or sorting to the market side of the agri produce. So market linkages become relevant only when these two things happen. And for that to happen, customized working capital structures is important. And that's where the financing dimension would come into the picture. Once the aggregation and market linkages are made relevant is when the last A of AMLA framework comes into picture, which is advisory services. For Samunnati, advisory services has two dimensions. One dimension is the external facing dimension in terms of how do we link markets, how do we bring the large scale buyers to, to be able to procure from the FPOs, what are their requirements in terms of quality, quantity, all these dimensions, which is external facing dimension. The second dimension of advisory services are the institution building, or the capacity of the FPO to be able to respond to the market dynamics or respond to the demand side of what they are doing. And that's where our institution building framework comes into picture, wherein we look at bringing in digitalization, ERP tools, a card-based solution, many ag-tech innovations which help the FPO to be able to effectively engage with their members and also start executing their model as an enterprise. That is what the objective of making a farmer collective into a farmer producer organization. Can it become an enterprise? That's the dimension where the advisory services come in. So when we started looking at all of these dimensions, we understood that there are a lot of good agri practices, good ag-tech companies and startups engaged in agriculture who are having interesting solutions to address specific issues or specific needs of the farmers, which needed the farmer producer organizations and FPOs to know that these are the avenues, these are the tools that are available for them to take benefit from, is one dimension. The second set of dimension is many of the FPOs, which are very progressive, are also in need of knowing what are the other ways in which they can either embark on new ways of doing farming or embark on better techniques in terms of farming, and who are these people who would be able to offer these services, and more importantly bringing awareness about it, is what led to what we are going to launch today. But as a precursor to that, on 15th of August, commemorating the Independence Day of this great nation, we also launched a dedicated platform for the startups in agriculture called Samaram. And the idea behind Samaram is India is seeing a lot of entrepreneurial energy in agriculture. And these startups in agriculture are looking for three dimensions on support. One is customized working capital for them, because the equity is available, the incubation support is available. There are a lot of institutional capacity that is built already to support agri entrepreneurs in this country. How do we bring in the dimension of customized debt capital or working capital for them is one dimension. Second dimension is many of the agri startups and ag-tech companies also wanted access to farmer producer organizations and farmers to deploy their solutions, both from scale as well as proof of concept. And the third dimension is, once the proposition is established as something that is going to add value, can we also create the ability for the users of this service to buy, to access these services? So Samaram started on 15th of August, and we are happy to say that we have about 104 genuine applications, 104 genuine agri entrepreneurs who have come on Samaram platform for a combination of these services. And there is a dedicated team at Samunnati which is working with them to provide what we are promising through the platform. But then the day today belongs to the next step beyond Samaram, which is providing a digital directory to all the players in agriculture, whether you are a provider or whether you are a recipient of the service. And that's what the day is all about. So I pause here. I cannot reveal too much about the platform because that is what we are going to launch today. But all that I would like to say as I conclude my welcome remarks is Samunnati is grateful to the Almighty for providing us an opportunity to do something meaningful in our professional lives, number one. Two, grateful to all the well-wishers who have been guiding Samunnati ever since its journey. Many of them are on the panel and on the event today, and many of you have actually supported us all through. And grateful that the agri ecosystem is creating a lot of opportunities for smallholder farmers to thrive and to be more productive. So on that note, I extend my warm welcome to each one of you and pray for your continued support and guidance. Thank you. Over to you, Madhushri.
Thank you, Anil, for setting up the context. Moving ahead, I would now like to introduce Mr. Ramanan Ramanathan, Mission Director of Atal Innovation Mission, Additional Secretary of Niti Aayog, to launch the platform. As the Mission Director of AIM, Mr. Ramanan has been instrumental to date in the launch and execution of several nationwide innovation and entrepreneurship initiatives, resulting in 10,000 plus adult tinkering labs being established in schools nationwide, with 5,400 plus operational across all districts and over 2 million students having access to innovative tools and technologies. So please.
Thank you, Madhushri, and good morning, Mr. Anil Kumar and all the distinguished panelists who are there today, gracing this occasion, and a very important occasion on Farmers' Day or the Kisan Vikas Day. It is indeed a pleasure and a privilege for me to be part of this panel and to be part of the inauguration of the digital platform that Mr. Anil Kumar talked about. A much needed initiative, a much needed platform to be able to address the challenges that not only the small farmer faces, but also there are challenges in the entire supply chain or the agri value chain, as Mr. Anil Kumar rightfully pointed out. I do hope before I proceed that everyone is hale and hearty under these very difficult COVID-19 circumstances, and that every one of you is also following the safeguards that have been advocated by your institution, by your government, or by the local health authorities. We are indeed living in unprecedented times. The COVID-19 crisis has brought to stark reality the many challenges that not only our country faces, but the world faces. A simple virus has paralyzed nations across the world. It has disrupted supply chains. It has created national lockdowns, many of which are still continuing. And with the resurgence of a variant of the COVID-19 crisis in the UK, there is still a huge fear of uncertainty of how long this particular pandemic is going to last and what the impacts of that will be. It has also created grievous loss of lives and livelihoods in our country. And in our country, we simply cannot afford that. We are a country of 1.3 billion people. We have a population that needs to be catered to, where more than 70% of our population is in tier 2, tier 3 cities in the rural districts of our country. We are still having many people, 22% of our country is still below the poverty line, and more than approximately 48 to 50% of our country is agri-economy based. And when we are talking about impacts like this, it becomes even more important of how do you sustain and how do you ensure that the farmer, the farming community, the agri community, upon which so much of dependency is there for not only our country, but also for the vibrancy of a growing economy. How do we ensure that we are plugging them right into the center of what we try to do in terms of resolving existing problems and in positioning ourselves for solving emerging problems in a post-COVID-19 world? And therefore, my heartiest congratulations to Mr. Anil Kumar and the entire team for coming up with a very, very timely platform, the launch of a very timely digital platform, which is going to help everybody in the value chain of agriculture, from the farmer to the aggregators, to the traders, to the exporters, to the importers, to the supply chain, storage and distribution people. When we look at agriculture, it's not an easy topic to be addressed. First and foremost, it's not so attractive as an IT company or a Flipkart or some companies like that, which are able to address and grow very rapidly. Here, at the end of the day, the beneficiary or the provider is the small farmer. And that farmer has access to land to which farmer, he doesn't, many a time, and most of the time, they don't have formal rights. It is very difficult for them to acquire loans. The ticket size is very small. Therefore, for financial institutions, it becomes a little unattractive as to how you're going to be able to service such small loans and be able to address the challenges of the small farmer. And that is where aggregation and all of the other aspects that Mr. Anil Kumar talked about, and I'm sure all the others who are much more experienced in this area and who have been, contributing to the growth of the agriculture sector. You're going to hear more about that in the next hour or so. But from my perspective, one thing is key, and that is why the Atal Innovation Mission was launched. How do you ensure that we embrace technology, which is becoming affordable, accessible, available, and advanced? How do you ensure that a fast-growing economy like India, which is one of the fastest-growing economies of the world, barring the COVID-19 crisis, we have been growing at 6 to 8%. And how do you embrace the fact that we have a demographic dividend, which is the envy of many a country? We have more than 150 million young students entering into the workplace. We have more than 65% of our country under 35 years old. We have 1.4 million schools, 10,500 engineering institutions, 39,000 colleges. And we have a very vibrant, young, energetic, potential workforce that can transform not only this country, but it can transform the world. How do you leverage these three factors of fast-growing, technologically changing, digitally changing, affordable yet advanced landscape, where 3D printing, robotics, IoT, sensor technologies, communication technologies, advanced computing, artificial intelligence, all of these can be brought to bear in the solutions that we are envisaging, not only in the agri sector, but in all other sectors. And secondly, how do we also ensure that this convergence of the demographic dividend and a fast-growing economy, which is very important for us to be able to sustain and create new innovations related to the agri sector and in many other areas, how do we leverage this convergence for the betterment of the country? And we indeed need to do that because, as I had mentioned, we have 650,000 villages in our country. We have more than 4,000 small towns and cities, and we have primary agri belt surrounding all these small towns and cities. We also have 715 districts, out of which 115 are aspirational districts. And these aspirational districts are among the bottom of the pyramid in terms of access to basic healthcare, basic education, basic affordable housing, clean drinking water, sanitation, water management, and so on, waste management, and so on. So there are these challenges to be addressed, and therefore it is very important to stimulate and leverage technology to drive innovation and entrepreneurship at every level in the country, at a state level, at a district level, at a village level, at a city level. And that is why the Atal Innovation Mission has launched on a series of initiatives, some of which you heard, where first and foremost, we want to create a culture of innovation permeating the length and breadth of the country, especially in our young people, because they're going to be the architects of the future. They're the dreamers, they are the change makers. They are the people who will create the solutions that we badly need for a sustainable planet and for a commercially growing country and economically growing and prosperous country. We need to have the socio-economic progress and the socio-economic fabric addressed whenever we are looking at solutions, leveraging technology and leveraging a growing economy. We are also having, therefore, to create this culture of innovation, we have launched thousands of tinkering labs across the country. Today, we have more than 6,500 tinkering labs operational. 10,000 will be operationalized before the end of this year. And we are having a tremendous awareness being built up about problem solving, innovative thinking in our young students between grade 6 to grade 12. Now, the interesting thing that I just want to bring out, because these are points which may not be shared and not be known by others, is that most of the innovations that we ask our young children to do is to solve the problems in and around the communities they live in. We don't give them exotic problems. We don't tell them, how are you going to create the next Apple product from a country? We tell them, look at the problems in and around the communities that you live in and see how you can leverage technology, 3D printing, robotics, IoT, and all of this stuff to be able to solve the problem. And what has been embraced by the students is this, that they are able to identify problems around them. And therefore, we have from Thoothukudi, a girls' school saying they have created innovation for solar panel IoT-based irrigation management for the farmers. And you can see agri innovations sprouting up everywhere because people are surrounded by the community where such problems exist: water management problems, irrigation problems, renewable energy problems, availability of electricity, increasing farm productivity, increasing the farmer's income. These are problems that young children even understand. So they are on their way to become more and more agri innovators, and that is the good news for all of us. The second is at the university level, we have launched hundreds of incubators which are fostering thousands of startups. And of course, Anil Kumar himself is a great example of a very successful entrepreneur. And what is quite pleasing is the fact that out of the 1,600 plus startups that have been launched over the last 2.5 years through Atal Innovation Mission, we have more than 150 agri startups. And that was not something that was a very exciting area. If you see a couple of years ago, about 5 years ago, you would have found hardly any agri-tech startups. But today, because of technology and because of digital supply chains and because of the tremendous possibility of India being, India is one of the largest agri-producing nations of the world, but we are not one of the largest exporters in the world. We are not having value-adding food products. We are not being able to address. I mean, we are the largest producer of milk, but a small country like New Zealand is exporting more milk than any of the or dairy products to the rest of the world, and that's having only 3 million people and 33 million sheep. And we have 1.4 billion people, out of which 70% are in the farming industry. So how do we leverage technology to be able to drive improvements in farmer productivity and farmers' income? It's a clear possibility. And when you have this possibility of using technology like how Samunnati is doing to create instruments of financing, instruments of loans, instruments of aggregation, leveraging technology to the hilt can enable and will enable this transformation from just an rural agri nation to a modern agri nation, leveraging technology and leveraging digital supply chains for our growth. And the growth can be tremendous. After all, we also have built a very successful $190 billion ITS industry, which is now servicing the rest of the world. And many of the customers across the rest of the world are also large agri customers, which our IT experts are providing services to. So why not direct that attention inwards? And why not come up with solutions leveraging satellite technologies, communication technologies, precision agriculture? If a country like Israel can export food from a desert, or they can export water, clean drinking water from a desert because of leveraging sensor technologies and leveraging the digital supply chains, why can't India do 10 times that or 100 times that? That is the challenge, and that is also the opportunity in front of us. And therefore, I do think there is a tremendous opportunity for young startups in the agri-tech world, to address every aspect of the supply chain, farmer producing organization, the FPOs, the aggregation part, leveraging artificial intelligence and data analytics to drive very specific improvements in very specific sectors. This is why Atal Innovation Mission has also launched what are known as Atal Community Innovation Centers across the country. Community innovation centers are to be able to create, spur, and apply innovations that is demanded by the local community so that it can be job creating. We need job creating innovations. We don't need just innovations which is going to result in a product that will have a great stock value, or which will have a great investment value. We need innovations that will spur job creation. And therefore, these community innovation centers are focusing on applying or creating solutions that the local community needs. For example, if you take Goa, how do you boost the cashew nut industry in Goa, which is a very big industry, but which is not one of the largest exports from Goa? How do you increase the fishing industry there? How do you use innovation for that? The tourism industry, the mining industry, and so on, shipbuilding industry. So we need local innovations driving local growth and local job creation. That is where agri-tech innovations are going to play a huge role, because agri-tech innovations can automatically and has automatically a supply of labor that can be meaningfully engaged if these innovations are enabling them to be able to grow rapidly, to be able to scale up, and to be able to become self-sufficient. And technology is going to play a big role. So with this, I would like to once again congratulate Mr. Anil Kumar for launching this platform, which is a much needed platform. And the beauty is these platforms can scale up rapidly And a country like India, the scaling up is so very important. So the ability of creating a great platform to be able to not only directly provide financing help and financing instruments for the smallest farmer in our country, for the farmers who are, many of them are illiterate, but how do you use technology and mobile technology using language interfaces for them to make it easy? How do you cut out the middlemen? How do you increase the reach from Salem to Seattle or from Sikkim to San Francisco? How do you market your organic products to all of these places? That is the opportunity. And I'm very, very thankful for Mr. Anil Kumar giving me this opportunity to share a few thoughts on this occasion. All the very best, Mr. Kumar, and I'm sure your platform will have tremendous impact. And we would like to apply your platform and solutions to the various community innovation centers that Atal Innovation Mission is creating with the help of the private sector and with the help of the local industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ramnan sir, for your introductory remarks as well as for launching this platform. Now I can say Agri Elevate is live, and on this auspicious day, let's all pray that agriculture elevates to a new platform with all our collective efforts. Thank you for launching the platform now. Yeah, Madhushri.
Thank you.
Thank you,
so
sir.
much. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. So on that context, I would now like to invite Ms. Medha Meenal from Samunnati to give us a walkthrough of the platform. Over to you, Medha.
A very warm welcome to you all, and thank you for joining us on this auspicious day as we launch Agri Elevate. So let's jump right into it. What is Agri Elevate? In a nutshell, it's an online listing platform for all of your agriculture and related solutions. But I think that doesn't quite cut it, and you may still be thinking, what is Agri Elevate? Now, think of Zomato. Every time that you're hungry or you don't know where to order from, or you simply do not know what to eat, you open Zomato. Now, similarly, every time you're looking to buy seeds or rent a tractor or connect to a wholesaler, or you're just trying to get advisory on your crops, you open Agri Elevate. For whatever your agri problem is, Elevate will connect you to a solution. So who is Agri Elevate for? Number one, the farming community. Right from an individual smallholder farmer looking to buy quality seeds or sell her harvest to the nearest wholesaler, to an FPO looking to rent a de-stoner for the post-harvest season for its members, or find a modern retail store nearby, Agri Elevate aims to serve as their one-stop solution. From innovative advisory services being offered before the first seed is sown to post-harvest processing solutions, Agri Elevate will have it all. Think of it as an exhibition ground of sorts where the farmer community can come and see all available solutions which will take agriculture to greater heights. Next, it is for the retailer community. Now, the agri world is full of small and medium-sized enterprises offering unique custom solutions to the farmer community, from hybrid seeds to herbal pesticides. Sadly, though, because of a lack of scale of operations, they are unable to attract as many customers. Agri Elevate is giving them the opportunity to connect with the farmer community. Lastly, the innovators community. In the past 5 years itself, the agtech space in India has grown exponentially, attracting private capital not just from Indian firms, but also abroad. However, while there is a ton of innovation which is happening in labs of IITs and IIMs, the benefit to the farmer community has not reached directly because of the lack of a common outreach platform. Agri Elevate aims to connect the innovators to the ultimate beneficiaries. Now you may be asking, why will they come to Agri Elevate? Firstly, to showcase. You can list your business on this online platform. Let the customers know where your stores are, what are the products and services you offer, and upload media to enable customers to understand your business better. To discover. Whether you are a farmer or an agri enterprise, Agri Elevate will help you discover solutions to your problems. You can search by location or by product and service, and further filter the search with specially customized filters according to the category of the organization that you're looking for. Lastly, to connect. Agri Elevate will connect you to the latest industry trends, news, and case studies, along with webinars related to the agri sector. Samunnati believes that dissemination of information will strengthen the agri sector, and Agri Elevate is a step in that direction. So now, where is Agri Elevate? You can find it on www.agrielevate.org. So this is agrielevate.org. This is the landing page. Here we have the search bar. You can search either by the location or you can type in the product or the service that you're looking for. Hello? Yes.
Mera, we can't see the screen.
Just give me. Okay. Just 1 second. Is this visible now?
Great, Medha, yes.
Yes. So I'll just start again. Here we have the search bar where we can search either by the location that you are in, or you can search by the product or the service that you're looking for. The entire page is organized according to the categories of the organization that you're looking for. And the subcategories of the categories are also listed on the landing page itself. At the bottom of the landing page, we have the Learn and Connect module. Now, this module is broadly broken down into 3 parts. One, we have the big industry news listed here. Secondly, we have innovative case studies which are, which have a proof of concept in the sector. And lastly, we have a curated list of webinars by industry bodies and other players in the space, which will help you keep updated with the latest news and also help you connect with people in the sector. Now let's further drill down into one of the categories. So we can click on the card and it will take us to the category page. Here we have the filter search results button. Now, all of the filters are specially created for the categories. So the filters for the vegetable supplies category would not be the same for warehousing or for transportation. Here, we can filter by the commodities procured, by the region that you're looking for, the payment mode, and whether pickup is available or not. Let's say that we want to look for fruits. So we check the box and click on search results. Now 27 companies have been found. When you click on the search results, you're taken to the list of companies which have shown up. Let's see what clicking on one of these companies is like. You're taken to the company page of that individual organization. Here is the name of the organization and the logo. The category shows up beneath it. The company can write about themselves and their origin, what are they into. On the right, we have the products and services that they offer. This single company can have multiple, can be in multiple categories, and all of those would be listed here. The company can also put in their store locations, their Google Map links for this. They have the option of uploading media, images, video, and brochures. Under videos, you can again either put the link to a YouTube video as they have done, or also upload media on your own. At the bottom of the company page, the users can write reviews and let the other people who are discovering the company know how it is and what it has been doing. Lastly, we have two buttons here, Contact Supplier and Contact Agri Elevate. When you click on Contact Supplier, you're given the details of the you're given the details of the organization, the phone number and the email address, so that you can directly reach out to them. If there is any information that you haven't found on the page, or if there's anything else that you want to look into, you can click on the Contact Agri Elevate button and leave us a message here. Now to sum it up, the detailed videos on usage of platform category wise will be following up soon. And thank you for your time, everybody. Madhushri, over to you.
Thank you, Medha. Moving ahead to the panel discussion now, I would like to invite Mr. N. Srinivasan, Independent Director, Samunnati, to lead the panel discussion on need and relevance of software platform acting as a self-functioning agri ecosystem in current times. He will be joined by power-packed panelists. Esteemed panelists for the session are Mr. Hemendra Mathur, co-founder ThinkCAG and venture partner of Bharat Innovation Funds, Mr. Bhaskar Reddy, Executive Director, Syngenta Foundation India, Mr. Pravesh Sharma, co-founder and CEO, Kamtan Farms Tech Private Limited, Mr. Anjani Bansal, Deputy Director of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and Mrs. Deepthi Reddy, CEO, Samunnati Foundation. Over to you, Srinivasan, sir.
Yeah. Good morning to you all. For some reason, it says it is unable to start video, maybe from the moderator.
One second, sir.
Yes.
Asked to start video.
Okay. All right. So it's not only important to be heard, but also to be seen, to be saying a few things, whether they are, profound, informative, interesting, or otherwise. So good morning to all of you. Indeed, it's a power-packed panel, and people from different parts of agriculture, enterprise, innovation, and public workspace that are as part of this panel. I should say that it has been a pleasure to be accompanying Samunnati on several of their new initiatives. Each time we come to public space, we seem to have something that fills up another gap. And not that we are short of gap, there are a large number of them. But as they say, you put up a wall with one brick at a time. So if Samaram started off the startup kind of the ecosystem with a meaningful web-based platform, now we are here with another which connects the farmer producer organizations with the wider world of people who operate in the market, whether it's finance, technical services, market, or market linkages. Yesterday, I was looking at some data of some successful farmer producer organizations that came out as part of some other meeting. What the data shows is the successful companies. Typically, they are about 7 years plus in age, and most of them have between 5 to 15 market linkages. There are about 2 to 4 financial linkages that they have achieved, and they also have access to some kind of a technology service. It could be 2 in some cases, 3 or 4 in some others. So when you look at the number of external linkages that a farmer organization requires, it is not as if we could say that, okay, at one point somebody will go and provide them a service and they will get done. A commercializing farm sector has different crops and also different other products that are offered based on the crops. To grow, to finance, to find markets, and also to ensure that they remain profitable over a range of these, requires that they access the best possible products and services outside. And then when a company, as I said, is about 7, 8 years old, they figure out eventually where this is all available. But the process of figuring out, if it takes 7 years, and if you have got about 1,000 farmers who subscribe to share capital thinking this magic will transform their lives, there are issues, which explains why out of the 7,500 odd FPOs that we already have on board, there are about only 1,000 that seem to be active, about 500 or so, they are very clearly visible. So how do we cut down this time that is required for new emerging institutions to be able to access the very necessary external linkages, and also for the external service providers, technology providers to know where these demands are, which are the ones which are requiring what and where. So a platform like Agri Elevate seems to try and come bang in the middle of this. Meaning, you can call it matrimony.com of farm sector, but then there are going to be multiple spouses. So we wouldn't like to use that analogy. So meaning trying to see how best to get the most relevant, the most appropriate and reliable service. That seems to be the effort. I think I will not belabor this point more, because we have got this erudite panel which knows how this platform can actually work and what kind of things that we should expect from this platform. So what I would do is to start off an initial round of about 5 minutes from each of our panelists to focus on a specific thing. Maybe I'll start with Pravesh. Pravesh has been a pioneer and a torchbearer for the farmer producer organizations for quite some time. Pravesh, what is the potential of this platform for farmer producer organizations? What do you think it can do to them?
Thank you, Srini, and thank you, Anil and Samunnati, for, as usual, breaking new ground as you have been doing, and also for this focus on the FPO on this very momentous occasion of Kisan Divas. I think nobody can overemphasize the need to bring in solutions, because not just that we have a legacy of unsolved problems, but every day we are adding to the problems of the agriculture sector. And I think it would be appropriate for this group to take a moment to also see how does the farming community at large, and I take the FPOs as a subset of that farming community, we cannot divorce them from that larger context. How are they looking at this entire emerging scenario where the word quote unquote disruption is becoming increasingly popular among a certain set of stakeholders? And is it resonating with the so-called beneficiaries or clients or customers of this disruption? Now, one of the outcomes of policy disruption which took place in the last 6 months, you can see on the borders of Delhi, where I'm sitting, right? There is also a history of a number of technology-led solutions. When I was in SFAC, we put in a lot of backing and public money into partnering with RML, Reuters Market Light, and we were, something not as ambitious and as well thought through as Agri Elevate, but basically trying to use technology, and it was called Krishi Doot, to take information, reduce information asymmetry, take price information, weather information to farmers. And of course, there have been very well-meaning attempts, and I respect everybody who's had the courage to actually step into this domain to try and address these challenges. Now, whether it is the government's policy intervention or it's a privately led or a philanthropic effort at using technology to, as we say, create disruption, but with the larger intention of making things easier for the farmers, my personal take now is that the one element which is ignored, and which is why perhaps many of these, very well-meaning efforts, including the government's policy efforts, sometimes fall flat, is the absence of trust. My learning now, if I could, share that, is that the most important element that needs to be woven into any such effort is how do you build trust? And primarily, of course, the trust of the farming community and FPOs, of course, as a subset of that farming community, and the other ecosystem players. Now, perhaps it's easier to build the relationship and trust with organized or formal players in the ecosystem, right? They can see benefits that you are talking about because they have tested the fruits of many of these technological innovations in other spheres. So to get them to convert to your cause is very easy. How do you create trust in this large, the world's largest cohort of farming households, 140 million, 14 crore farm households? Even in 2050, India will have the largest number of farm households in the world, right? How do you create trust? And as I said, to refer to this unfortunate example, ongoing protests at the Delhi borders, that a history of over 40 years of MSP being given to farmers of a certain region being the predominant beneficiaries, even they don't seem to have trust in the new sort of policies which, of course, address many of the older challenges. So I'm not at all pleased commenting on, because we are only seeing a concept note, and I think very welcome set of ideas has been put on the table. There's a lot of work I'm sure Anil and his team are going to still be doing to populate this with the details, and we'll all look forward to those details. But as we do that, and as we put our faith in technology, may I also humbly suggest that a similar effort may be required to invest in trust building. And if you're talking about FPOs, and as Srini said, why are there such a small set of winners? As it happens, if I can add a personal note, I began this whole FPO initiative 10 years ago exactly, in 2010 when I joined SFAC. It's a decade. I'm closing in. I joined in November 2010. Here we are in December 2020. If I was to look back, maybe I would never have imagined that so many brilliant minds would be engaged, in addressing this problem. But at the other end, I also feel that why is it that, as you said rightly, only around 500 really vigorously active FPOs exist, and maybe I'll be a little more liberal than you, maybe another 1,000 or so who exist between 1 to 5 crores of turnover, which certainly does not make them sustainable, but certainly they're alive and kicking. How do we reach out and, in a sense, have them come forward and say, look, I want this. Today, the minute a child is in class 5 or 6, he's demanding a mobile phone from his parents or her parents. How come this technology has made such an impact, even on a small child, that he or she wants to be glued to the screen? How do we create that hook? I mean, I'm very much part of this group, which is, I think, struggling for solutions, but I always feel heartened to see so many better minds than mine now engaged in this. So let me stop here, but again, I would emphasize, let's also think how can we create the incentives for trust building as we build this platform. Thank you, Srini.
Thank you, Pravesh. The key point that I take from what you said is, look, there is a lot more than honest efforts. Something called trust has to be built so that the platform, the suppliers who are there, the providers who are there, they become reliable source of good quality services, products, information. And so how Agri Elevate will try and do that. I'll now turn to Mr. Bhaskar Reddy. Maybe we take off from where Pravesh left. So building trust, probably the platform alone cannot do. People who come onto the platform as suppliers, whether they provide finance, technology, services, inputs. So how do you see their getting onto the platform, and what is it that they would, expect to get out of it, at the same time ensure that the farmers remain engaged over a long period?
Thank you, sir. And firstly, congratulations to you, Anil and Samunnati team for launching Agri Elevate. So big congratulations on this. Coming to the point, sir, I think one of the way I see Agri Elevate is a kind of aggregator of aggregators, where you're able to aggregate a lot of things for FPOs, because FPOs are independent units. Although aggregated at a farmer level, they are still disaggregated at a higher level. Their bargaining power is smaller, and so on. So if you look at, if you step back and see, it's a question of chicken and egg, in terms of companies coming onto the platform or companies wanting to interact with FPOs and to do the business, means they need volumes. Unless there are volumes, they don't see an advantage in directly engaging with FPOs. And likewise, and unless some companies come and start working with FPOs, and the FPO starts showing a delta, either in inputs or in the output, the farmers don't engage with the FPO. So it's a question of how do you make that seamlessly work? That has been the biggest challenge, I think, in any kind of an aggregation platform. So I think, at the moment we do that, I think the point that you raised about farmers paying share capital, and coming on to and participating with more rigor automatically happens. For instance, if farmers have purchased inputs worth 5,000 last year, and this year, if FPO is able to offer it even at 4,800, then automatically the farmers start believing in the FPO, and that's what I think trust that Pravesh was referring to, and that trust builds, and then automatic kind of a virtuous cycle kicks in. That's one. Coming to the Agri Elevate, I think the way I see it, the biggest challenge is translating information into action. I think there's a lot of hard work that actually has to happen at that end. Agri Elevate with a lot of information about companies, technologies, is a great starting point. But just to give an example of market linkages, imagine there is a company which says for a particular region, they're willing to procure maize or soybean. They also define a quantity, and they're even defining a price. But for that whole transaction to happen, the farmers need to be trained on the post-harvest practices. There has to be certain moisture content at which the company will be willing to buy. So who does that role? Who trains the farmers to make sure that the standards are being met between the buyer and the seller? So evolving that common language, between a buyer and a seller, I think that is the biggest challenge in agriculture. The reason the Amazons and Flipkart of the world work seamlessly is because there is zero disconnect between a buyer and a seller. When we order something, we know what we are ordering and we get that. But in agriculture, especially around market linkages, that becomes extremely challenging. So how do you make sure that the standards are maintained? And that's both a challenge for the supplier or the buyer of produce and the farmer as well. I think that means that the FPOs and the entrepreneurs and other aggregation platforms have to step in and play a very critical role in training farmers on various things. So in that sense, I think Agri Elevate should be positioned as B2B2C kind of a platform rather than B2C platform. B2C platform, it's extremely difficult for the reasons I mentioned earlier. So where FPOs or entrepreneurs act as a middle B, business to business to consumer, I think that makes it interesting. And the third point again is related to the effective demand generation. Agri Elevate should have one level below it where there is effective demand generation happening, either by coordinating with the FPOs and doing the demand generation 2 months ahead of the season, and then putting up the demand. That makes Agri Elevate and the suppliers, a kind of a thickness factor, or the supplier starts getting attracted to the Agri Elevate, because just the information will not make it attractive for them. But the moment you say that these group of 10 FPOs or 20 FPOs in a particular small cluster in Tamil Nadu or in Bihar want X number of packets of input seeds or fertilizers, then the supplier starts getting excited. So I think effective demand generation is extremely key, and that has to be built into the Agri Elevate platform. And fourth, I think also important from farmer point of view is region-wise, neutral, curated testing of various technologies and products, and to make sure that the right kind of products are positioned on the Agri Elevate. We can't just allow every company or every technology to just be positioned on Agri Elevate, and that kind of also affects the credibility of the platform. So I think how do you make sure that the governance of Agri Elevate, where you are able to test those technologies, give some kind of a ranking, and eliminate spurious suppliers and so on. So that I think is the fourth point, which is extremely important, which will bring in a lot of value to the entire ecosystem, both to the farmers and to the right companies, and it also would kind of spur companies to follow right ethical practices, and so that they're incentivized to be on the platform and so on. So these are, I think, a couple of points that I would like to share, and I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhaskar. You make the point that it's a question of volumes. If you get some of the larger providers want to participate in this, so best is that FPOs are best equipped to do the aggregation and show the volume. But then below the line, to make the FPOs effective buyers, the demand generation becomes an important area. And also you are talking about the trust factor by saying, look, you curate the products and services that are offered on the platform, even the technology that is offered on the platform, see that the FPOs have a good experience of that. I would turn to Hemendra. Hemendra, you got several hats on the startup innovation incubation space, but I won't hold you to only that. How do you see this providing a solution from, say, people who are new institutions who are wanting to enter the agricultural service product markets, maybe serving FPOs? What kind of thing this platform can offer, and in turn what they can offer back?
Thank you, Srinivasan sir, and many congratulations to Samunnati for launching another much needed platform. I was part of the Sambharam platform launch on 15th of August, and another 4 months we have another platform. So it's very heartening to see that kind of momentum. I clearly see Samunnati becoming a platform, so that's really great. Yeah, to your specific question, yes, let me bring in the startup perspective. I personally believe the FPOs and startups, it's a very symbiotic relationship, right? FPOs need access to markets. FPO needs access to data, advisory, access to input, access to mechanization, access to warehousing, access to credit, right? And this is precisely the 600 odd army of startup is working on right now, right? So clearly, at a very broad level, one would think that why they are not working together, and but that's the fact. Recently I was working with IFC on agri-tech policy for the state of Maharashtra, and I interviewed about 20 FPOs in Maharashtra, and each FPO I asked one question: name 5 startups you know of, forget worked with, and none of them could name more than 3 startups. So that's the level of awareness. So, and these are very, very mature FPOs. And of course, among those 3 or 4 startups they named, Samunnati was one of them. So clearly, I think there's a huge awareness gap. Of course, as Pravesh sir said, there is also a huge level of trust deficit in the ecosystem. So I think that's where I see the platform like Elevate playing a very, very important role, taking these innovations to FPOs, educating them, making them aware what exists in the ecosystem so that they know where to go to, right? I think the second challenge from an FPO perspective is that they don't want to deal with a dozen startups, right? And each startup is, as of now, providing one kind of service or product. So can this platform become a one-stop solution or kind of a relationship manager, like we have this in this banking world, one RM comes to you and he gives the entire bouquet of services which bank offers. So can Elevate become a one-stop solution or one point of contact for these FPOs where, he sort of gets there and get access to all the innovations which probably is, or all the services that FPO needs. And this takes me to the Bhaskar's point that if we are taking these startups or innovations to farmers and FPOs, we should ourselves be confident of that. So there's a huge element of curation, right? So we have to be careful in terms of whom we onboard on this platform, and how do we build that level of validation and authenticity before we present it to FPOs. I think that's extremely critical in building the credibility of such platform. Another piece of advice that I have is make it a little bit more holistic. For example, I see role of Krishi Vigyan Kendras, agriculture universities, corporates who are selling to farmers, agri input companies, corporates who are buying from farmers, SMEs, food processing companies, NGOs who are operating in a particular region. How do we onboard them? Because all said and done, there has to be an offline component, right? And Elevate can do whatever it can, but can we build bridges by, bringing in players who are very active in the local ecosystem? And that's where all these constitutes, all these members become very, very important for the success of platform. So I think this is where I see role of Agri Elevate. In my mind, I'm very clear that that if these two ecosystems come together, it can really be not just mutually beneficial, but it will create a lot of synergies. It will bring a lot of transaction cost down, and it will unlock huge amount of value. And for many models, which I don't think are possible independently, if FPO do it or a startup do it, I think it only makes sense if they come together. For example, if you want to build export-linked supply chains, which Mr. Ramanan was hinting at, that's where, you need to have traceability, you need to have quality you're saying, and you need large volumes, right? And that's where I think bringing FPOs and startup together make a lot of sense. If we want to encourage model for farm level storage, farm level processing, farm level value addition, again, startups and FPOs have to come together, right? So I think many models become realistic and scalable if we bring those synergies together, and that's where again Elevate can play a very, very important role. And I think the last point I want to mention is the whole startup ecosystem. When we think in India, it's all about Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, Hyderabad. I think we have to deepen it. We have to deepen it at the village level, right? To make it more democratic and to really solve for a lot of challenges that all of us see today in Indian agriculture. So I think if Elevate can take this startup culture or innovations from Bangalore to Kolar, from Delhi to Baramaki, and from Mumbai to Hingoli, I think it will serve the purpose. And we will not just have unicorn startup, we will have unicorn FPOs, hopefully, to which can be one of the measure of success which we can set for ourselves. And I think that's where we will really unlock the value. And I would end with what Anil keeps on saying, that startup is like a rich girl and FPU is like a poor boy in a Bollywood movie where they want to marry each other, but both of them are thinking, look, it's so difficult, and how we, whether it will work out or not. All I can say, most Bollywood movies end with a happy ending, and we have an opportunity to make a happy beginning. So so with that note, I will stop here, and all I can say, I'm very excited to be part of the ecosystem, and look forward to working with all of you to make it a big success.
Thank you, Hemendra. I think so. You brought the Bollywood movies and a happy ending in that. Yeah, I also take the point that FPO doesn't what do you call really know what is available out there, and the AIs do not really know who exactly might be wanting the range of what they have to offer. So a relationship manager for the FPOs is what Agri Elevate could do. Also, you refer to the other point with which I am going to connect up, Anini. There are organizations, there are people, institutions which have something to offer to the farmers, either as part of their mandate or as part of their what do you call goodwill. But then there is no commercial interest involved in that. So how does Agri Elevate make that possible? This could be NGOs, this could be donors, philanthropy, this could be the government wanting to offer extension services, which they offer anyhow through many other means, but then it could be more pointedly with a greater focus, apply it on specific sets of farmers or regions or FPOs. So I would turn to Anini Bansal to look at how does the platform make it possible for those third parties who have no commercial consideration, but who have got a lot to offer the farming community. How do they get engaged with this platform? And then the issue that was raised of what is relevant, what is trustworthy kind of information that gets passed through this platform.
Yeah, thank you, Srinivasan, sir. Really great to be a part of this discussion. And I feel like I've already benefited by listening to yourself talk about FPOs and how this platform can work for them. I will just start in order to respond to your question with one visit I had to some FPOs in Telangana, where we are trying to see how we can help these FPOs use greenhouses. And in talking to some of them, what I found is that there was a group of farmers that wanted to use greenhouses in order to cultivate some higher value varieties of vegetables. But they couldn't really find a reliable source of that expertise, the right quality of greenhouses. So they went with the one person that they could find. And they had a really bad experience. The greenhouse was ineffective. They actually lost crop for a couple of seasons. And as a result, what they decided was that greenhouse is actually not a good thing for them. And then when an organization which is developing greenhouses using more curated technology, they work with experts from other countries. They're developing greenhouses which are focused on small farmers. When they reached out to this FPO, they actually had to first convince them back that greenhouses could actually be useful for what you are trying to achieve. So essentially what I'm trying to say is, in absence of a platform like this, not only slows progress, but sometimes it pushes it back. And in a platform like this, which is built by a credible organization, has the potential to show and prove the quality of services which exist on this platform, it actually can help farming community adopt new practices, new technologies much faster than they otherwise would, because of the point that Pravesh was making, which is related to trust. And a platform like this can play a big role in bridging that deficit. And there is nothing more credible than peer reviews, which we have seen in other sectors. And a platform like this enables that, and not only enables it, but also makes it easy for people to do it. And that to me is also another big advantage of that a platform like this brings. And also for people like whether it's philanthropic organizations or government, even from a technology perspective, I think there are a couple of things that we can learn from other sectors. What we have seen, for example, in case of healthcare or in case of jobs platforms, what has happened is there are some lessons that we can draw from as we try to build Agri Elevate, where one or two such platforms are created, but then these are somehow siloed efforts and are not connected with the right people in the government or with other players in the ecosystem. And as a result, a few years down the line, they get replaced by something new. Or another, say, government department or government agency, which is not familiar with this platform, could very well create something very similar. And the existing platform gets appended by the new kid on the block. And therefore, it is important for us to keep that in mind upfront, that from a technology perspective or from the technology architecture perspective, platforms like this have to ensure interoperability. They have to keep in mind what are the ideas which are coming up within different government agencies and government departments, so that those hooks can be created upfront and not after the fact. And the last point I would also say is, from a donor perspective, we often are looking, when we are working with certain governments or we are working with certain companies, agriculture is such a diverse value system, value chain, that we are always looking for partners. Who are the right partners in a particular region who can offer a particular skill set or a product? And it's not that easy. Most of the time we rely on our personal networks or reach out to other people in the sector. But a platform like this can significantly democratize all that information as it evolves over a period of time. And to me, it's just simply a sign of a very rapidly maturing agriculture ecosystem in the country. And I see the Agri Elevate being a critical part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Anjani, for that well-rounded, explanation. And the fact that while even donors have things to do, information to be put out, services to offer, they also have a requirement of trustworthy partners to implement. So this can actually also provide feedback to them, meaning which are the good ones out there, who is doing what in terms of focusing their effort. I turn to Deepti now. Deepti, you heard in some ways what kind of expectations are there from some of the others in the sector in terms of what Agri Elevate should be doing. So since you are part of the Samunnati group, let me ask you the objectives with which this platform has been set up and the kind of expectations, requirements that are there, as you hear from several people. How do these two actually match, right? And then also to look at whether we are responsive. If not now, the plan, how incrementally it will be responsive to these.
Thank you, sir. Agri Elevate for us is a solution for continued engagement we are offering as an enabler to the agri ecosystem. most of these aspects that we've discussed across the panel of how we could build in the mutual trust, the curation of the information, and deepening further across, be it in vertically through the FPOs or through the stakeholders of the channel partnerships horizontally, on how we can continuously engage and therefore democratize this information is our objective. So that's where we are.
You are on
So
mute.
we can't hear you.
Diti, did I stop you?
Sir, we couldn't hear you. That's all.
Okay. Are you able to
You are
hear
on
me
mute.
now? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You see, I just had a couple of questions to be put to the panel for a very quick round of responses. You see, we are saying there's a tremendous opportunity for FPOs to, what do you call, access information. Also for people who supply goods, services, technology, finance, to be able to notice FPOs as to what their requirements are. For an FPO to participate in this platform, to enter and effectively present what they need so that they can access whatever the platform has to offer, what kind of preparations might be required and whose role it is to prepare these FPOs. I'll start with Pravesh on this and maybe go to a couple of others. Then I switch over to others for the next question. Yeah, Pravesh. Okay, I think I'll go to Bhaskar, then I'll come back to Pravesh when he comes online. Bhaskar, the question is the same.
Yeah, so I think FPOs, of course, like I said, one is the demand generation. Effective demand generation is one thing, and the second thing is around the trainings. How are the FPOs equipped to meet the requirements of the companies? Is the second thing. So unless these two aspects are managed, the platform, there won't be transactions happening between the companies and the FPOs. That's very clear. So now a question is who does these two important aspects? I think FPOs need to be strengthened and they need to be trained on these aspects. I think either there's an opportunity at Agri Elevate level to start. That's the reason why I said earlier, suggestion also that Agri Elevate could create the demand generation platform as a part of Agri Elevate itself. That's one step. And also, if you can have a teams, which I'm sure Samunnati is already doing in terms of building the capacity of the FPOs by providing them trainings and so on. That's extremely important. These 2 points have to be kept in mind. And also, it is the other way around when, for instance, now how does the FPO choose which products it wants and which companies or services or technologies to adopt? And that's where I think it's important that each FPO is supported, or each FPO is trained to set up a small center of excellences or demonstration farms where multiple technologies could be tested and the farmers themselves can see which technologies that they should adopt. It could be as basic as seed variety. For instance, in Syngenta Foundation, when we work with agri entrepreneurs across multiple locations, one of the things that we do very effectively is to ensure that each entrepreneur has a demonstration farm, where in that demonstration farm, the entrepreneur is growing 4 to 5 different varieties of tomatoes, or for instance, if it's a tomato crop or any other vegetable, and let the farmers see and decide for themselves, which is the best performing variety, so that next season the entrepreneur sources that particular variety for the farmers, and the farmers are happy that they have already seen the results. So I think setting up these demonstration farms at FPO level to test and validate the technologies is extremely important. So that's how the FPO should generate the demand, and also, like I said, training is important. Yeah.
Pravesh, the question was to you. FPOs to be able to participate in this platform and make best use out of what it offers. What kind of preparations they need to make, and whose role it is to prepare, especially the younger, newer FPOs that want to be part of this platform, whose role it is to prepare them.
So sorry, I got disconnected for 2-3 minutes. But I heard most of what Bhaskar said in the end. And to specifically address your question, see, the thing is, the FPO today has a very good idea of what they need. The problem or challenge is that they are only aware of solutions within the local ecosystem, right? Agri Elevate hopes to bring solutions which are outside the local ecosystem. Let's say they may be in the regional ecosystem or maybe the national ecosystem. I'm sorry, like a stuck record, go back to my point of trust. The reason why the FPO goes for the local ecosystem solution is that there is a history of transaction or relationship. It may not be the most equitous relationship. It may not be the most balanced relationship, but at least there is a history and visibility over a certain period of time. There are repeated transactions, and therefore the FPO plonks for that local ecosystem solution. Let's take the example of, let's say, Agri Advisory, right? As NSS data has shown repeatedly in the last 2 decades, the current single biggest source of information on agriculture production technology is the local seed dealer. 19% of all farmers, as per the last NSS survey of 2013, said that they relied on the local agriculture input dealer for advice on production technology. The government, the reliance on government agents is as low as 6% at a national level. So after agri input dealers, the second most trusted source is other farmers. That's around 14%, right? So this is an example. Now in the same ecosystem, let's say maybe in the same district, there is a KVK, right? Which is obviously staffed by very competent people. It has all the frontline technologies on display. It has all the information available, but there is no way for this information to travel to the farmer, whether or not they are members of the FPO, right? So I'm saying the challenge before Agri Elevate is, how do you pool in information? And here is the catch: from the local ecosystem to the national ecosystem. Can Agri Elevate also onboard local players in the immediate vicinity, right? I'm sure through a certain process of vetting, through a certain process of, now in the past, Samunnati, and I know it scaled back on that program, but when Samunnati began 4 or 5 years ago, it was even willing to work with Mandi Commission agents, because there is a certain relationship of trust that farmers have with Mandi Commission agents, right? Similarly, there is a certain ecosystem of local agri input supply dealers, local technology service providers, local, let's say, solution providers for mechanization and other challenges. How does this platform populate its field, even with local players, from the local to the national? I think this is the challenge, and if it can achieve this, then I think we have a winner on our hands. Farmers do understand that only ITC or Ruchi Soya is going to be a bulk buyer of soybean, that the local trader is only going to be able to buy a certain quantity, or that the local trader is actually buying to supply to the, one of the reasons why the e-Chopal took off is because the ITC brand name was associated with e-Chopals, right? So there was a certain amount of trust in that larger sort of brand name. And here again, this issue of trust, I have to, repeat. So I would say that to prepare for this, there may be a certain amount of education and information dissemination. So beyond being a transaction platform, can Agri Elevate also be an information discovery platform, simply to give people information about background, information about maybe ratings and rankings. Some of the players may be, vetted by other authorities or other platforms. So if we can work with FPOs as a preparatory to transactions, as a preparatory to discovery, and to answer your specific question before I close, I think that everybody in this ecosystem will have to work to prepare the FPO. You cannot expect merely the existence of this platform to initiate transactions. So part of the work of the partner that you're onboarding will also have to be education and transparent information sharing, so that the FPO gets the confidence and the trust to be able to transact.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pravesh. I think on the same question, I will turn to Anjani with a slight, a tangential movement. Do you see a role for the donors and also the other government-like players to invest in this part of what both Bhaskar and Pravesh said, that there is a need to equip the FPOs with adequate information and also how to use that information sensibly when they participate in a platform like this. Basically converting information into intelligence that they can use on a reliable basis. So would you see a role and would there be willingness to invest in this role as well?
Yeah, thanks, Srinivasan sir, for the question. I definitely think there is an important role that philanthropist organizations and government have to play. A good example of that is recently, there were a set of recommendations that were made, which was related to job creation, but in agriculture sector. And one of the recommendations was to create a cadre of service providers to FPOs. And these service providers would come from, could be entrepreneurs in villages or graduates from agriculture universities who are trained in certain capabilities that FPOs need. And an example of that is Agri Elevate. So platforms like this, where FPOs by default don't necessarily have the capacity to learn how to use this platform and then actually transact on them. And therefore, this cadre of service providers can actually create a sustainable business model where they're providing a valuable service to FPOs on how to get on this platform and derive value from it. And when it comes to training these entrepreneurs, building this cadre, creating the curriculum for it, creating the right standards, I think philanthropic organizations and government can play a critical role in moving that forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Anjani, for that. I will now turn to Hemendra. This is a different question. Actually, Mr. Ved Prakash Singh has raised an question here. The question is like, many times it so happens that a particular player has great ideas and opportunities set up, but FPOs farmers being primary stakeholders, they fail to develop a mutual trust. This happens merely because of access to information, that poor access to information. At the same time, there is also another set of things that play. The platform has people who know clearly what they want because they are commercial, they are entrepreneurial, they know on the supply side. The FPOs, they enter the platform hoping to improve themselves, get something out of it. Not, at least some of them might know much more, but many of them. So in between these two, how do we actually govern this kind of a platform for its best impact, that it is neutral, it doesn't seem to actually advocate some interest over the other, and everybody finally thinks that this platform is something that I can actually participate and use. So what kind of things that we need to look at in terms of governance?
Yeah, I think that's an important point. I would say it starts with articulation of the needs. I think that's extremely important, and setting the right expectations for the FPOs. look, all the service providers that that are coming up or that will come up, are also moving from an experimentation stage to a commercial stage, right? And as Pravesh sir said, that it's essentially the whole advisory or information providing information to farmers is still largely by the local players because there's a huge element of trust. So I think this is an evaluation phase for both the service providers as well as the FPOs. So I think it's very important to set the expectation right. It can't be a conventional customer vendor relationship where you have very, where there's a lot of things which are forgiven, right? So I would say, we should definitely try and bring solutions to FPOs, but we should always qualify it in terms of that this has been tried on so and so crop in so and so region, and this is probably first time we are doing it here, right? So there is an element of experimentation out there. So we have to have all the disclaimers and I would say disclosures in place, when we are making that kind of connect, so that we don't set wrong expectations for the FPOs. Likewise, when we take FPOs to service providers, again, we should be clear in making those disclosures. What does this FPO stands for? What have they done? What, as Bhaskar is saying, the demand side of it, right? And the demand and supply side of it. So I think that is important, and I think it's this whole trust building process will take some time, and I will strongly advocate for some sort of interaction, maybe on quarterly basis at a very regional level, where we call out few FPOs and few service providers together in a room to brainstorm it, right? We attempted this kind of event last year with the help of Arindam in Delhi, but that was one-off effort. I think we need more regular effort because it's essentially trust building process, which we can't do in an online mode. In an online mode, we can of course crowdsource a lot of ideas and players onto it, but to make it work, we need to double it up with a lot of offline connections. And I think we need to have a governing board which not just drive governance but also take active participation in making these partnerships successful. I think we should prioritize quality over quantity. It's not about onboarding 1,000 FPOs and 500 startups and things like that on board. It could be like 15 FPOs, 30 startups, whatever. But make that work. I think that will build credibility for us, and hopefully will drive governance as well in the future.
Thank you, Hemendra, for those thoughts on meaning the requirements of how we have to look at governing the platform for everyone. Dipti, now I turn to you for what do you call some concluding thoughts based on what we have heard, especially the platform. It has to remain relevant. It has to remain very connected so that it doesn't become obsolete, that others come and take over, the point that Anjani made. And it has to remain current. If everyone has to benefit. So how do we update just not the kind of product, services, information, but what's happening out there? Meaning, I think something Medha showed right in the beginning, even current news coming up there, and the need that some of these are customized. Also, the additional load that we curate the information, do some amount of validation before something comes on the platform, either as an organization or as a product or service. So putting all this together, governance seems to be a slightly tougher requirement than an ordinary platform where we say we just casually put information with no responsibility. But here we take more responsibility than a normal platform where you say there are buyers, sellers, you meet and you apply your common sense to do things. So how do you see this going ahead?
So assimilating all the views and the approach we have taken as a solution in bringing up the farming solution directory. This is sort of integrating all the disparate stakeholders across the agri ecosystem. And our aim is to continue to engage, making it more open, knowledge dissemination, information sharing, so that it is not just transactional, it is more about mutually beneficial as various stakeholders across the agri ecosystem can come over and exchange and understand and get to, like Medha said, have the contact information, have the details curated, which can further help them to bilaterally have the conversation and take it forward.
Thank you, Deepti. I think, I think before I conclude, there is a request from Mr. Bhaskar. Yeah, please go ahead, Bhaskar.
Srinivasan, I just have one point to make. I just was having a chat with Anil last evening. At Syngenta Foundation globally, we have developed a platform called GATE. It's nothing sophisticated, a very simple platform, what we call as Global Agriculture Technology Evaluation Platform. Essentially looking at various startups, any technologies that that they come up with. What I mentioned earlier in the demonstration farms and Center for Excellence is we bring in those startups to test the technologies, and from day one, it's done with a bit of a scientific rigor in terms of control and the technology and putting on the data, capturing the data from day one. And once we do that, that data gets onto the GATE platform, and through a stage gate process, we validate how the technology is, both from a technical feasibility of the technology on its relevance to small farmers and financial feasibility from farmers' perspective in terms of whether they can afford the technology. And once those stage gates are passed, and then we say, okay, now this technology is great, it can be distributed through the FPOs or entrepreneurs is one. And we can also look at how this can become a independent third-party evaluation platform where rather than the startup talking about the technology, the startups can give this link to the private equity and venture capital people who can come and independently verify how the technology has been tested and validated. And lastly, that if the technology is good, say we have a good startup, say for soil testing in India, and the same technology can now, because it's available on a global platform, it can be accessed by our colleagues in Kenya or Indonesia, and they can invite the startup for in those countries. So it's got multiple uses. So so what we're exploring is that we could Agri Elevate could use GATE platform for testing and validating of these technologies, and we'll be happy to share the platform and also train few people on how to use the platform and so on. Yeah. I just want to share this. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bhaskar, for that, and it's quite useful. It has been an engrossing hours discussion on a new platform that we have launched. It also is very clear that the expectations from the platform are much higher than what Anil and team might have started with, because this platform is not about information exchange and finding another person with whom I can do some business or have a relationship. It's about providing solutions from both sides, and also the level of trust, the level of diligence required in making the platform come alive for all of us. That seems to be at a premium. That's a repetitive thing that has come through. But looking at what we did with the Samaram, and the fact that in the last about 3 months plus time, we have 104 startup on the platform and registered. We are going to watch the Agri Elevate with much more interest. Hopefully in about 6 months time, we have a short discussion in again the public space on what is happening in the platform, what's interesting, and what seems to be quite useful, purposeful for several participants who are out there. That might be a good thing to do. And let me compliment every one of you in the team for an exciting start, and all my fellow panel members for taking the time out and then trying to put their thinking hats on and looking at different parts of what the Agri Elevate seeks to influence, and how best it can be influenced. And I thank everyone for patiently listening, and the fact that we could take up only one question from the audience. Always we fall short when it comes to dealing with audience questions, but I hope that this was of use to everyone, knowing about a new platform. So when we do a 6 month later, a review kind of a meeting, maybe we have more questions which are real, not imaginary, right? Thank you all. And back to Madhushri.
Thank you, Srinivasan sir, for moderating all these conversations. And yes, I'm realizing the gravity of starting off something, because starting is only the beginning. While the proverb is very fine, saying well begun is half won, but the other half is more important. Not the first half, the second half. Also thankful to Bhaskarji for opening gate to the gate, which would enhance the value proposition for the Agri Elevate. With some of you, definitely with Hemendra and with you, sir, we have always been internally mentioning Agri Elevate as the Pragati Maidan for the agri service providers, with the FPOs and farmers being the visitors. So that's the dimension that we are looking at, where the exhibitors would be the ones who are keen to add value and provide service to FPOs and farmers and progressive farmers, large farmers as well. Those are the exhibitors, and of course the visitors are the ones who are interested in the service. Samunnati would play the role of a matchmaker, and we are not looking at doing transactions or any commercial dealings on the platform. It would be open for collaborations of people who are not interested in commercial, because this is not a business enterprise or a business proposition, this platform, I mean. So it will be housed in Samunnati Foundation eventually, and would be not for profit, and would be open for many well-meaning entities who are interested in the smallholder farmers. So thank you very much for taking out time. I know some of you have other engagements to quickly jump into. That's why I thought I will come in here and express our gratitude for your continued support. Thank you. Over to you, Madhushri.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have a special message from Mr. Surya Kumar, PVS, Deputy Managing Director, NABARD. Due to unforeseen circumstances, he was not able to join us today personally, but he has left a message for us. It's playing that now.
Namaskaram. First, I would like to congratulate Shri Anil Kumar and the entire Samunnati for this bright new idea, Agri Elevate. Thank you for having me in your midst virtually. Now, let me share with you a few developments from our side on the FPOs and a few thoughts from my side. My dear colleagues who believe in FPOs, Namaskaram once again. Having called you as believers, does anyone still harbor doubts whether FPOs can deliver development to its constituent farmers? Any doubts there? If there is a doubt, there can't be any discussion, isn't it? Yes, if we believe there are issues in making FPOs deliver better and better, we can discuss and contribute to make this work and contribute to make this possible. In the development paradigm, FPOs have suddenly come into the focus and onto the center stage, with the Government of India announcing a new central sector program of promoting 10,000 FPOs. Most of us in the development sector have been working with these entities since about 5 years, and the results are a mixed bag. Presently, there are about 9,000 FPOs promoted by various organizations across the country. Of these, nearly 60% are produced and developed by NABARD itself. Historically, a few events that mark the journey of FPOs are national policy and process guidelines for FPOs, funding from the RKVY, equity grant and credit guarantee scheme of the SFAC, NABARD's support through dedicated funds, credit support by a few banks, credit support by NBFCs like Samunnati and our own sister organization NABKisan. There are few recent developments which would be of interest to all of you. The newly announced Agri Infrastructure Fund recognizes FPOs as eligible beneficiaries for the interest subvention. The newly announced priority sector guidelines consider loans given to FPOs up to 5 crore rupees as priority sector lending. NABARD has recently prepared a guidance note and rating tool and we have shared the same with all the banks, and the Reserve Bank of India has also vetted and concurred with these with the guidance note. And now let's come to the 10,000 FPO program. On these learnings which we have gained over the past 5 years, and these developments will stand us in good stead when we launch this program very soon. This is what we in NABARD are believing. Our share is 4,000 FPOs, and we are endeavoring to make these FPOs deliver very well. In fact, in NABARD, we are superimposing these FPOs onto our existing development projects. Here, the social and natural resource capital are built and honed over several years. Hence, this is a win-win because it is a huge convergence, and we believe that this project would be like a lighthouse. Let me also add our training organization called Bankers Institute of Rural Development, which is based at Lucknow, is the nodal organization for training for the FPO program. We have also reached out to several training establishments who have developed expertise in the FPOs and are taking their program and converging the same with us. GIZ has worked with us and has developed some training modules, and they developed 6 hours of animated training material. Our aim is to develop a unified set of training programs. These will be complete in all respects, from the day-to-day schedule, objective of the program, objective of each session, material for each session, reading material for the complete program, and the training guides. Training guides are very important because this will enable any trainer to make full use of this material. The idea is, with a little support and hand-holding, any trainer from the NGOs or any other organization should be in a position to run these programs in situ where the FPOs are functioning on the ground. These will be hosted on the BIRD's website and will be available for downloads. One more provision we are developing. Any new training program or training material developed by any organization, if found suitable, after it gets curated by a set of trainers, will also be put on the website with clear credits and disclosures. The idea is very simple. If we want to make this program deliver, if we want the FPOs to deliver, the path should be democratic. This is my firm belief, and we are all working towards that. We also believe when the capacity building issues get addressed thoroughly, many attendant institutional issues which are present in the FPOs must get addressed. This is our expectation and hence a huge importance to the capacity building. We believe a good capacity building will lead to a very good awareness generation. With a better awareness, can anyone harm their own self-interest? I think no one would hurt their own self-interest. Hence, better capacity building programs are very important. I am very happy to be virtually present at this very important occasion, as I mentioned in the beginning, where Samunnati is launching the next thing for the FPOs. I call this next thing because this is an electronic marketplace where the entire ecosystem players will be present. They will interact and can transform FPOs into a new asset class. I wish all the best for the Agri Elevate. I wish Agri Elevate transforms into a powerful platform. I have a few desires. Let me list them. I wish Agri Elevate does these things as well. Create and maintain a complete digital database, expert advisory to farmers, dissemination of vital information from the government, banks, and most importantly, the markets, digitization of various processes in the supply chain, FPO-friendly market portal where transactions get enabled over a period of time, farm machinery hiring through apps, and interface with the commodity exchanges. This is my simple wish list. I am sure this is not very easy, and I wish and pray that this works soon enough. I know that a panel discussion is going to take place after this talk. Let me assure you that NABARD will be open to any new ideas which are coming from this event. I would request the organizers to share these ideas with me so that we can incorporate the same in the 10,000 FPO program. I am very sure we can collectively make a huge difference to the farmers and most importantly consumers who are interested to know what they are consuming. This is a big demand pull will happen. I once again thank the organizers for inviting me to the event. Jai Hind. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Suryakumar. It was really insightful discussion. Moving forward, now I would like to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Arindam Datta, Executive Director, Rural and Development Banking Advisory, Rabobank. Mr. Datta has been working for Rabobank for the last 14 years and has over 28 years of experience in rural finance, cooperative, microfinance, agribusiness banking. Mr. Arindam is further passionate about following tactic development and its significance for the smallholder farmers. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Madhushri. It's a pleasure to be speaking in this event, and it's a bigger pleasure because I'm sitting in the Samunnati Bangalore office today. Now, we had a stellar panel discussion, and it's very, very difficult to add more value to what has been already spoken by the honorable panelists, but still a couple of points I think I need to say. Firstly, agriculture is a physical activity and FPOs and FPCs are physical entities. However, when it comes to the raw materials and services which are required by the FPO, FPCs, or the markets they seek to address, they could be local, regional, national, and even international. So I think that it's extremely important to have a digital platform in place, not one, but there should be many in a country of our size and complexity, which can cut through the information asymmetry and get information to the different stakeholders, the FPO stakeholders, so that optimal decisions can be made. And I would like to look at Agri Elevate as a super aggregator, because the FPO or FPC itself is an aggregation model, and this is a super aggregation that we have in place to take all the natural advantage of economy of scale. The other thing, we talked a lot about the potential use cases for Agri Elevate. Most of them are the most obvious ones, but I would like to talk about two in particular, which would evolve over a period of time. First, I would like to say is we probably today don't even understand the full potential of this platform. It's as and when it evolves over a period of time, we'll understand as to the new kind of activities, network activities, or plug and play activities it can do with other external stakeholders, which are difficult to kind of predict as of now. First is a big challenge which is coming up in the very near future. It's already here, is the climate challenge. Whether it's from addressing the risk or the opportunities that climate issues they provide. So both from a physical risk perspective or a transitioning risk perspective as to when FPOs, they move to a more resilient businesses, that it will be almost impossible to provide the right kind of advisory inputs and other services to the FPCs on a standalone model. It's only through platforms like this that appropriate solutions could be provided so that the climate risk aspect can be taken care of by FPOs, FPC. I mean, that's something I guess is not spoken of much in India. It's only, we talk about aggregation, but it's extremely important that aggregation and digital platforms would also provide the right kind of framework to address the climate risk and opportunities. The second is about policy and the enabling environment. I think the more data we have in the platform and the more interactions we see, I think for the policymakers, whether it's the government or whether it's from a banking perspective, the RBI, or it's the NABARD, which is the overall main stakeholder so far as the FPC movement is concerned, they will be able to take a lot more credible decisions and make better policies, keeping in view the live kind of feedback they get from the panel. That's extremely, extremely important that we be able to, through this platform, reach out to policymakers so that more appropriate policies can be made for farmers and farmer organizations. Now, what could potentially be the success factors for Agri Elevate? The first is, it was stressed earlier, I think by Hemendra, it's about information and credible information. How much of credible information can come into the platform? Second is, it's not a one-off, input of credible information. It needs to be dynamic in nature, because agriculture is a seasonal activity. And we need dynamic information to be able to take optimal decisions for FPOs and other stakeholders. Third is how many ecosystem players, external stakeholders can plug in and participate in the platform, in the digital platform. And I think nothing succeeds like success. So it's very important to be able to have those early small successes in the platform, maybe 6 months, 8 months down the line, and to be able to make very nice case studies and disseminate those case studies of interactions, businesses, synergies which have happened on the platform, so that it can crowd in more interest and more participation for stakeholders. And I'm very, very bullish about the success of Agri Elevate, because whatever Samunnati, that Samfin and Samunnati Agri Services have touched in the last 5 to 7 years have mostly been only successful. And the kind of agriculture financing and agriculture supply chain innovation and solutions that the Samunnati group has brought into the Indian market is a great learning for all of us. And I'm sure that with all that knowledge and all that credibility and all that expertise and experience that Samunnati group has, that Agri Elevate will be a booming success. And I hope that 1 year down the line, we come back again and we kind of see as to what successes have come out of this platform. With that, again, a big congratulations to Anil and his team members. And I wish you all the best and look for early successes of Agri Elevate. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Datta, for gracing us with your presence and sharing your thought-provoking insights with us. Now, moving towards the end of the webinar, now I would like to request Mr. Gurunath and Executive Director Samunnati to provide us with the closing remark. Over to you, sir.
Can you please unmute my videos?
I think you will have to try once.
Yeah. So as we come to the end of the Agri Elevate launch, I would like to thank all the participants. Special mention to Mr. Arindam and Mr. Ramanan and the panelists. Couple of cues picked from the panelist. Let's all together make Agri Elevate as the community. Let the innovations happen around this community, and let's build trust in this platform, and let Agri Elevate become one stop for all the farmers and FPOs, so that the transformation of the farmers and FPOs happen through Agri Elevate. I thank you all. I thank you all the participants for their continued support. Thank you very much. Madhushree?
Thank you. We're just waiting for attendees to drop off, and then I will end the call for all. So we'll end the webinar, sir.
Thank you all.